Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone, and we are talking about Babylon 5, Season 5, Episodes 17 through 19, Movements of Fire and Shadow, The Fall of Centauri Prime, and The Wheel of Fire. So we are getting right up into the end of the season. I think there's 3 episodes remaining after these 3, so we're in last 6 episodes of the season, and it's Babylon 5 is almost done for us, so... Adam, why don't you get us rolling with Movements of Fire and Shadow?
Yeah, well, movements of fire and shadow. The war with the Centauri is up and going. The Centauri are going around destroying jump gates, which would completely destroy interstellar travel. And
And
the
norms, right? It's like a violation of a norm that's existed for some time.
yeah, it's still cool when Sinclair does it to destroy a shadow ship, though. That's different. But well, he was doing it for a dead planet, but so they gave him an out there. But yeah, and there's other plot lines going on. Sinclair. Where am I getting Sinclair from? Sheridan is looking into getting White Star destroyers made, so they have some big heavy ships in their fleet. Veer is concerned that the Drazi are not returning any dead bodies from the battles, and wants to know what's happening with their dead. And Londo has been doing more of his digging into what's going on. Oh, and Lita and Franklin have to go to Drazi to look into the problem that Veer's having with the missing bodies.
I
And
oh, go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I was like, oh, yeah, and of course some of the Drakiri and the Drazi both really, really, really want to go attack the Centauri homeworld, and Sheridan is not happy about that. So
Yeah, this was. I mean, this is like a 2-part episode, really, right? Like this and the next episode are really kind of linked, if I remember. So much so that it
yeah,
says like
yeah,
last episode on Babylon 5. I really enjoyed the plot line with Veer and the bodies in the ships and Lita and Franklin going to investigate. The other
yeah,
stuff was good too, but it was sort of more big scale events. But this, number one, I think this was really important, especially with the stuff that happens with Lita down the road. If we didn't get another Lita episode that connected her to another character like Franklin, I think it wouldn't have had as much of an impact 3 episodes from now when we get there. So
yeah,
so I thought that was good, but also just the premise was cool. I thought it was a cool premise. The number one, the idea that they're not sending bodies back is kind of like it's an intriguing, like, well, okay, what's going on? And then
yeah.
the reveal was I thought that was pretty interesting. So
Yeah, the pods were visually nice. They were nice, menacing in an invasion of the body snatchers kind of way. So I like those as well.
and they basically have these organic pods that can pilot ships on their own, right? So they don't need a crew. That was the idea.
Yeah, yeah. So that's yeah, basically the yeah. I mean that's how they've been doing it with so few people on Centauri Prime knowing about it.
I I do have to say that does seem like a really extreme solution to the problem. Like in an age when you have advanced computers, I would think that a simple
That's
program would have been the way to go. But
that's largely a problem in classic science
yeah,
fiction. I mean, this being a show that draws on classic science fiction, I mean, it's like, when you read like a science fiction classic like Gateway by Frederick Pohl, one of the best science fiction books there is, and I highly recommend it. But, the premise there is they've found this, this asteroid full of all these alien ships that are pre-programmed to go places, and they have to send these crews on almost suicide missions to see where these ships lead. And
mm,
it's like, can't you just put like a camera on it and have it go and come back? Can't you automate this? But no, they can't, because the automation of like that doesn't exist to them. But yeah, so it's definitely a classic science fiction issue.
but it still works. It's not a critique on my part. It just is
No,
something I was noticing. But I think the pods are the best. It's a more satisfying reveal than if it was like an AI machine. Like a
yeah,
new advanced program to pilot a ship.
Yeah, they just got a Google, self-driving program installed would be kind of a letdown. But
Now, in this one, do Delenn and Lanier get attacked by the end of the episode, or is that
yeah, they get it. They do get attacked on this episode. That's actually part of the plot line with the with Sheridan wanting the destroyers.
Yeah, no,
He sends her back to get Minbari approval for the whole plan, which is where she gets attacked.
yeah. This does not seem like a good time to send Delenn into space alone on a mission like that. I understand it's
Yeah.
critical and it's got to be super secret, but like they need to have other people aside from Delenn and Lanier and people of that have like the president can't be going out on secret missions. The president's wife can't really be going out on secret missions.
Well, I don't know. In this case, there is a qualifier in that getting to see the Great Council is in of itself something very few people ever get to do. I mean, it's been established that, like Lanier probably couldn't, if they sent Lanier, he probably couldn't even get in to see the Great Council. So they kind of had to. And I mean, and we know as watchers, the Centauri War is going to be over in a couple of days. Just wait. But for all they know, it's going to drag on for a year. So
Okay, I think that's a fair response. That's probably that I think that alleviates some of my criticism there. I would still say though he shouldn't be sending Lanier alone with Delenn at this point. I think it should be obvious to him what that could lead to, and also we find out she's pregnant in a couple of episodes from now. And my first thought was, well, wait a second, is that definitely Sheridan's child? Like I don't know for sure. There's
I
enough.
think so. Based on her reaction with Lanier on the ship next episode, I think it's going to be
Well, how about
pretty
this?
sure.
Let's talk about these two episodes together as one thing, because I think so much of the stuff ties in, and I want to address that before I get to it, because I know we've disagreed on this a little bit, and I think I disagree with most people, but I really feel like she's sending him strong mixed signals anytime this subject comes up, and if somebody expresses romantic interest in you and you have none, the way to make sure that doesn't go forward any further is to physically create physical distance between the two of you. Like don't make things more intimate. Her reaction is always to touch him tenderly on the cheek and get closer, and so in the situation that unfolds where he says, Delenn, I love you, because they think they're going to die, and it's a reasonable thing for him to say in that moment given his feelings. And she kind of smooths it over for him in a nice way. She's like, oh, I didn't hear you. And then she says, oh, people say crazy things all the time. Nothing happened. You know what I mean? She gives him like, the only problem that really with her solution is she offered up all 8 of them rather than just picking one.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the I didn't hear you was perfect. Just say that and shut up. But no, she then goes out to, oh, you did hear me.
Well, what my interpretation of that was she realized that he knew she heard her. And so then she moved to the next one.
She'd already made the classic Han Solo move by that point too. Of I love you. I know it's
yeah. There was that. Well, and that was definitely I think there for that reason. But then when she talks to him about it, she holds his hand, and she's saying things that on paper look like she's kind of rejecting him. But if you're a hopeful, young attaché, well, I guess he's not a young attaché anymore, but if you're a hopeful person desperate for somebody to love you, you're going to read all of that stuff in the most optimistic light you can.
Yeah.
And also...
I agree during that episode. She handled things very forward.
But I also wasn't convinced she didn't reciprocate his feelings in that scene. That's why I had that question mark when she said she was when they said she was pregnant, because I was like, well, they're on this long voyage together, and there's this whole sequence of time that they skip over after they know they're about to be rescued. We don't really know what happened there, and so and that was a very intimate moment. So I mean, granted, I don't think that that's where the show is gonna end up going, but as a viewer, I was really wondering, like, okay, whose child is this?
I don't know. My feeling with what she's doing that I kind of disapprove of is that, I mean, she does genuinely view Lanier as a friend, and she cares about him a lot, but it's just, when I mean, when you have someone that's got a crush on you, you can't keep asking them to do things for you. That's like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
you can't make him your go-to guy anytime you need a dangerous job. And it's like, and she's been doing that. And it's like, anytime I've had someone that's got a crush on me, it's like I still try to be civil and talk to them and that kind of thing, but you keep this distance and you don't go, "Hey, will you do this for me?" Because you know they will, and
Yeah.
it's there's just a level of almost abusiveness to it when you're kind of aware of a situation like that. And she is aware of it, so I don't know. I don't. I definitely side with you that she's sending mixed signals, but I don't know. I don't know if the mixed signals are because she also is in love with him or anything too. I don't think anything's happening there.
Yeah, I don't
But
know. I just had that thought. I had that thought, and I think that again. I mean, it's definitely a mixed signal.
mhm.
And Lanier, Lanier's not just some nerdy priest anymore. Now he's like a man of action, and there's a degree, there's like a dangerousness about him now that like I'm
Yeah,
becoming aware of. And obviously, it was planted by that unfortunate interview that like a spoiler that I saw. Again, I don't know exactly what happens. It's just that he hinted that the character goes in a direction that that it seemed to suggest he betrays Sheridan or something. Um, but you can just see it. It's just like, oh, this guy's becoming a dangerous man, and who knows what he's capable of. Like maybe he's gonna drop kick Sheridan and grab. Like I don't know. I don't know where he could go. He just is. Like in a moment of impulse, he's now got the means to eliminate somebody that's in his way. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so I feel like it's playing with fire at this point. And again, it makes for good drama, so it's good. It's good for the show.
yeah.
You're just sort of
Well,
you're just sort of like, why stop? Don't do that.
yeah, but I mean, him going off and joining the Rangers could have been a good thing if Delenn didn't keep calling him in for these special assignments all the time. It's like, fine, he's going off, he's starting a new life. Then a few months, he meets new people. It's like he gets it out of his system. But her summoning him to do these things all the time, it's like that. It doesn't allow that to happen.
And so
But
yeah. I mean, and again, it's a the reason why I'm reacting so strongly to it is because I mean Lanier was my favorite character very early
mhm.
on, and so it's been very painful to watch him go down this path as a
Yeah,
viewer because I really like that character. I think it's the right choice, to be honest. When I first caught wind of it, I was like, I don't know, but now I think otherwise he might have been stuck in sort of an odd role where he's just kind of comic relief or something, and now he's got like a little bit more of a direct line into the main plot that he sort of grew as a character, but he also got a little dark, and I think it makes sense given everything he's been through. So you know,
yeah. I'm going to see how it plays out because I'm like I said, it's been a long time since I've watched, so I'm kind of hazy on the specifics. So I don't know if I'm going to end up hating this development or liking it this time. We'll see.
but
But
we should get into the next episode because we're we want to sort of tie that to what we were talking about, and I don't want to gloss
sure.
over all the events. So do you want to give the brief rundown of the next episode?
Yeah, well, the previous, I mean, movements of Fire and Shadow ended with the Centauri Prime getting bombarded. The Regent sent all the ships away and turned off the defense systems that they had and just left it wide open. So we had the previous episode end with the terrible bombardment. Oh, we did forget one thing actually in that episode. While they were in the cell, we had the weird, possibly the dream sequence thing that Londo has too. That which leads into that before he gets out of the cell. But yeah, so this is the bombardment of Centauri Prime. Uh, we have the negotiations that end up with the war coming. Londo has to accept his role as getting his keeper, And I mean, there's just a lot going on in this episode. It's
And he
tough to
becomes
summarize.
emperor, right? This is the
He
episode where
becomes emperor in this episode.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I as a whole, I loved this storyline, and I sort of held off
Hmm.
talking about the Londo stuff just because I knew it was going to become more relevant by this episode. But
Yeah.
I thought this was a great storyline because I've been really nervous about there are a lot of characters I'm nervous about. Everybody's kind of going and it's good because they're taking people into risky territory, and Londo is one of the most risky characters at the moment where we don't, we the hope on the viewer is that Londo is redeemed, and you don't know what's going to become of Londo over the course of the next episodes and in the finale,
Yeah.
except for the glimpses that we've seen. And I really liked because I was wondering like how is he going to allow that to happen to himself? Like why can't he stop this?
Yeah.
And the only thing I had to go on was the keeper. And I kind of knew it was something that's attached to his shoulder, and it tells him what to do, and if he doesn't, he kills him or something. But I know Londo well enough to know that he would just say, "Hey, screw you, kill me." You know what I mean? Like at a certain
Yeah.
point, he's not going to want to play ball. But what are they called? The Drock? Is that the name of the
The
race?
Drock. Yes.
So he learns that there's this race, the Drock, which is controlling the prime minister, not the
the region.
the region, and they took a play out of Londo's playbook, which is
Yeah.
they filled they just put explosives everywhere, and they're just going to blow stuff up if he doesn't do what they want. So that's the thing. Like that makes sense. It makes sense that he would play along because he doesn't want his people to die.
Yeah, that's Londo's prime thing. He looks out for his people. That's like above everything else. That is his main motivation, So because I was wondering too, because as I said, my memories are really hazy on this season, and I wasn't sure exactly how this all played out in my memory either. So I was like, yeah, okay, this I completely bought this, and I wasn't sure I would.
And
But
what I like too is I like number one the way he acted it, the way he sort of portrayed his
Yeah.
character, because he really was. I mean, he had to walk this super fine line where you get the sense that he internally he hates what he's doing, and he's not trying. He's not trying to be mean to. He doesn't want to betray Sheridan. He doesn't want to hurt Sheridan or any of these people. But he's got to play this role now because he's sort of. I think he fully understands all of the rules as soon as he's a much sharper guy than the Regent, and so he's very good at sort of rebuking, but also getting them to safety, and just the way he acted that out. I don't know. Because I was a little bit wary going in. I was like, I've seen Londo be like this. I've seen him be like that. I don't know if I'm gonna, how is he gonna pull this off? And it was like a drastic character change that worked really well. It's like he became the Emperor, and it was effective. And I also liked the effects of the inauguration, like when they had him projecting himself to talk to the people. That was awesome. That was great. And then when they had him walk, he decided to go alone, and just number one. They use a lot of red brick on Centauri Prime. We have a lot of red brick in Massachusetts, so that was one of the first things I noted. I was like, "That's an awful lot of red brick," and that's that's a unique choice for a science fiction setting. Do you know what I mean? Like red brick, you really tie yourself to certain eras and places, and so I thought it was kind of a cool aesthetic when I started to sort of I got a much better picture of what Centauri Prime looks like. But yeah, so I liked all that stuff. I liked that Jakar is going back to Babylon 5 too. That I thought that we were gonna have Jakar stuck on Centauri Prime through all this, and so I'm glad we got him off.
Yeah. The Londo Jakar stuff in this episode is just fantastic. I mean, you have this obviously you have the scene of Jakar forgiving Londo, which is a big deal, but I also really like the last scene with Londo and Jakar, where Londo he's at this point he's got the keeper, he's got to have the act of you people all need to get out of here, go, and he's got to be stern. He's already given the speech, and it would have been easy to have the scene be, Jakar gets angry because Londo's suddenly being a jerk again and have him go off. But it's like there's this kind of curious look to Jakar, and he's like, okay, I respect you. I know you're doing something weird here, but
Yeah.
it's your thing. You've got to do. He kind of does that little kind of gesture of respect at the end and stuff, and it's just like. It's like they're close enough at this point that even though Londo is acting crazy, Jakar's like, okay, I'm going to leave you to do this thing you feel you need to do. It was a much better ending.
Well, because they're kind of go through the same thing. Like Jakar is losing his ability to choose as well because of his whole deification, I guess. He's sort of becoming a religious figure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on a much more rooted, sort of grounded level than what's going on with Londo. Londo is sort of a much more enhanced version of this problem, where it sort of takes the how a position of power like that necessarily changes you, and adding in all these other elements that just to just put it into overdrive. And Jakar has got like the more sort of real version of that problem. But I think number one, they sort of understand each other from that. But also, Londo told him, "You're going to hear some things about me in the coming months," and so he warned him. And I think they've been through enough that like they both sort of, I don't know. I mean, Jakar's whole story has been about his forgiveness and so he's finally reached this point where he can forgive Londo, and he's not just gonna that was a long journey for him. He's not gonna just sort of reverse that decision, I think. And so yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting moment. I also thought the Regent had some really great moments in these two episodes. I like that they took the most silly character on Centauri Prime, arguably in the show, and they really gave him he became something really moving and interesting, and he, I don't know, they redeemed that character in some big ways with those final moments. And so I don't know. I just and I thought, I mean, a lot of it was the acting, a lot of it was just the situation and the dialogue, but it was again, they took a character that would have just been a two-dimensional, this is the funny guy who cares about drapes, and they took that funny element, the drapes, and they just ran with it the whole way to the end, and they made it important. That's sort of what I liked about it. Like the fact that this guy sort of was aware he was a silly, not unimportant, but a silly person that people probably made fun of. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I felt for that guy in that moment. And then when he kind of brought it around and he's like, but I'm a Centauri, so I'm not like afraid. Like that was, I don't know. It just worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. That was a powerful line there. And yeah, cause it's interesting because, I think I brought this up in a previous episode, but I like the fact that, this all happens with the Regent because, Londo basically ran away. He's had these visions of, being the Emperor and it being this dark, horrible thing. And he's just running away from being the Emperor. And, you could almost think maybe if Londo had stuck around right after the Shadow War on Centauri Prime, he might have been able to stop all this from happening. He might have been savvy enough to stop the Drakh from getting in there and taking over. I mean, he might not have, but it's the classic, tragedy thing of someone trying to avert their destiny, and perhaps that's actually what caused it. So it's an interesting angle there.
And I got to say, the Drakh are super creepy.
I think we've seen the Drakh before in the previous season, if you remember.
But that was like that. Okay, we did see the Drakh before, but wasn't it that really weird sort of guy doing the we're not going to get more of them, are we? Like, have they kind of refined the concept of the Drakh? Is that?
Yeah, I guess they probably thought that was a little. Probably the special effects in that were a little too involved to use on a regular basis.
Because I really like this Drakh a lot better than that one. That one was weird. I wouldn't want that to be the big bad for the rest of the season.
Well, we did see or maybe it was just in the dream, but we did see multiple types of aliens there. So the question too, are the Drakh an alien species, or are they just a collective of different different servants of the shadows. So
Well,
which is another possibility.
well, I think that dream didn't happen at all because
That's why I bring it up as being
yeah,
part of the dream. I'm like, well, are there? Because that was in the dream, so I don't
no,
know.
because the dream suggested. I thought when you see the dream sequence, it looks like, oh, that's how he's going to get the keeper. They're going to surgically implant
Yeah,
it. But then when he actually gets the keeper, nope, the guy just takes something off his shoulder and it goes over and sticks into Londo's body on its own, and it's like a fully organic thing. That dream sequence doesn't seem like it was required for that exchange to occur. So I think the
no,
dream sequence was Londo's own sense something's really wrong here, and he was putting the pieces together in his head. Do you know what I mean? Like he was sort of
yeah. Well, he was definitely tapping into something, and I mean, and I mean, being a Centauri, he does get visions from the future to an extent. So it's tough to say. Obviously the surgery part wasn't real, but the aliens, I don't know. It's very inconclusive. You can't say.
But the other thing we get is they have a meeting, and Lita Alexander is sort of back in the inner circle. I noticed,
Yeah,
which I gotta say, like given what happens with her in the next episode, that I feel like they. They really again Sheridan could really solve a lot of their problems if he just um, if he just knew when to give people the attention they need and give them like and we've been saying this with Lita Alexander for a long time, but so much of what's going on with her is really just about her not being given the time of day and not being given the recognition
yeah.
despite all of the things she's contributed. I feel like there needs to be like an annual stipend for anybody that was anybody that was involved, like any main cast member that was involved in any of the stuff that happened should be getting money from Babylon 5 on a regular basis. Do you know what I mean?
I
Uh,
know what you're saying. Yeah, a pension of some kind.
like
It's
like hopefully Ivanova's got some money coming to her from Babylon 5 wherever she is right now.
she's
Uh,
captaining a ship.
okay.
So, but yeah, but I don't know. I agree. I mean, it's interesting how different Sheridan is this season. I mean, he's just so harried all the time.
Yeah.
It's like the weight of what he's doing is really, it's like we talk about how other characters have been badly affected by it, but it's and obviously there's the whole drunk Garibaldi thing and that, but it's like
Is that next
it's him
episode
not
or this episode?
that's more next episode, but I'm just kind of bringing it up from the standpoint that you know it's like it seems like Sheridan is suffering from the stresses this as much as anyone else, and it's like a lot of the bad decisions come from the fact that I think he hasn't had any break, and I mean, and he even had the horrible torture between at the end of last season too, and he just
Well,
I just don't think he's staying on top of things.
well, I mean, see, that's the thing. If the torture guy in that episode had just given him paperwork instead of a poison sandwich, he probably could have gotten made some headway. I think we're
Exactly.
busy work is seems to be his kryptonite, and
Yeah.
I think I mean, they've suggested it with a lot of like the little scenes whenever people he's always doing something, and so I think I think the thing to keep that I'm keeping in mind with his character and all these scenes is every decision he's making is in between other pressing matters, and so he's
Yeah.
it seems to be affecting things. Though he was when we get to the next episode, we'll see he was more on the ball than I was giving him credit for. But
Yeah. But he still let it happen.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a thing. It's like he saw the warning signs and he just
Well,
never got around to dealing with it.
the key thing there is when did he begin to at what point exactly did he begin to suspect, because that's a really important
Yeah.
line. But we should get into the next episode, I guess, unless
Sure.
there's something to say on this one. But the next one episode is go ahead.
No, say no. I think I'm ready for the next one here.
So let me see if I can remember the plot to this one. This one was
This is a simpler one.
Garibaldi's alcoholism comes to explodes Like everybody is like instantly aware that he's an alcoholic at a meeting, and and he has to go on leave or he gets suspended and he has to deal with his demons and he's helped by Lockley. But there's this other side plot with Lita where where they need to arrest her because all of those bombings of Psycor and stuff, they've been traced back to like money passing through Babylon 5, and basically like it's all like if I got it, Lita's been funding a terrorist campaign on Earth against Psycor, and so Zack and Lockley go to arrest her, and they discover to their horror just how powerful she is.
Yeah.
She can basically manipulate everybody in the room at once. Like if you thought the shadow telepath thing was impressive, so here's the thing: why didn't she just win the damn war for them? Like in the
I don't think she's. I mean, the thing is, she's only recently really been pushing. You know, they've kind of remember they had that thing with Garibaldi waking up in the night, and she's going, "Yeah, I'm looking to see what I can. I'm really pushing it and seeing what I can do." You know, I don't think she could. I mean, well, I don't think she knew she could do this stuff back at that time. It's she's just been pushing and pushing and pushing, and she got to that point.
So it takes Sheridan to arrest her because he's also been touched by a Vorlon, and so
yeah,
I think that was the wording they used too as well.
That was touched by a Vorlon. Yeah. Yes,
and so so he puts a gun to her head and they arrest her, and then they do the Magneto thing. They like put her in like a cell where like she like all of her powers are like she can't do anything, and then you get the whole storyline again with Garibaldi, and his wife returns, and they're gonna go live on Mars, and he's gonna what's the name of the company that his wife is now in control of?
Boy. Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, I think it's the husband's name, but I've forgotten his name.
But you know what I mean.
Edgar. Well, is it? Well, Edgar's
Industries, name, right? Is it Edgar's
Industries? Yeah.
So he's gonna basically. So his wife is or his ex-wife is now. Was she even his wife, or were they just dating?
I don't think they're married yet.
Okay.
No. Or yeah, I don't think so. No.
But she's his ex, and she basically says she's going to give him half the company. You know, which I don't know. That seems like a questionable choice, given that he's like in the throes of this alcoholic spiral right now. But
I don't know if she meant it literally, that she was handing half the company to him, or just, hey, by being married, you'll, you know. I'm not sure how literal that terminology was.
Because I could see him, you know, just making a really bad decision with, you know, whatever authority he has within the company. You know, in this state that he's in. But he ends up deciding to go to Mars, and he also has like a nice sort of moment with Sheridan when the alcoholism comes to light, and then he tries to cut a deal with Lita, and they're able to sort of, and I think the end of the episode what ends up happening is Lita and G'Kar are going to go off together, and so they sort of get paired off as wanderers through space, and. It was a lot. I mean, I'm butchering the plot, but there was a lot in this episode.
There were those two plot lines going on. I feel what was the other plot line going on here? But yeah, I don't know. The Garibaldi alcoholism thing, I think, was a little heavy in parts of the episode. I was like, it kind of worked, but
I wasn't a big fan of having Lockley be an alcoholic too. The reason why is I can understand putting Garibaldi in that kind of position despite him being an alcoholic. I don't understand why you would, you know, I mean, presumably Sheridan knows that Lockley is an alcoholic. That seems like a really risky, like, I mean, given like the precarious nature of their enterprise, like.
Well, I don't know. I think with Lockley, it's not an issue from the standpoint that I think, you know, she stopped drinking when Zoe died, based on what we've learned in this episode and what we learned in the previous one. So it's like, I think, you know, she was probably like 19 or something like that, you know. So it's like, I don't think it's anything that's part of her record or her adult life. It's like something she went through, you know, Yeah, stuff like that doesn't really count against you. With Garibaldi was a guy who would, screw up his jobs time and time again because he was an
Yeah.
alcoholic. So I think I think as far as looking at someone's employment record, I think Lockley's clean in that regard.
Okay. Okay, that's probably fair. I still did find it kind of too much.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I just didn't need the well, yeah, I'm an alcoholic too kind of.
Yeah,
Like I think she could have empathized with him without having to have the same exact experience. Hey, just having her dad
well,
be an alcoholic would have been sufficient in that exchange, I thought.
having him team up with Lita and have his opportunity to get revenge on Bester was a much cleaner, more interesting path for him to go. Okay, because that was what drove him over the edge anyway, was
Yeah.
not being able to ever get vengeance against Bester, and it's like, Lita being able to clear that path for him. I think that solved the problem. So the whole Lockley thing just felt superfluous. It
Well,
was like,
I really do wonder how much of that was stuff that was planted in his head by Lita. Do you know what I mean? Because we have that scene where she wakes him up in the middle of the night and it's a dream.
that's
And
true.
so,
That's true. She's
so
already been rummaging around in his head.
because it was her counter offer that because initially he goes in there and he's like, look, I forget what his offer was, but it was basically that he would he would like get her he would get her status cleaned up and like she would help him on Mars, I think. and
Yeah.
and she's like, no, how about you help me get revenge against Bester, like how about that? And I mean there's more to it
Yeah.
than that, but that's kind of the arrangement that they end up with. And so I mean he's kind of just doing, I mean obviously that thought was probably there with him before anyways, but and she did it very smart. She did it so that he has to prove himself first, and then if he does it, then she's going to take out the block that Bester put in, so he can get his revenge. So it's
Yeah.
so she's using Bester's block as a motivation device, and so I don't know. I liked where Lita went, and I kind of like the idea of her ending up with Shakar because, and you're going to see this when we get to Return of Condor Heroes, but Shakar is becoming like he's becoming almost like he's a religious figure now, and and there are these two characters in Return of Condor Heroes, and one of them is Reverend Yi Dang. Remember when we did the Brave Archer series? You had the guy that did the Yang finger technique that we were all talking about,
Yes.
and you remember the Iron Palm guy, the really bad man in Brave Archer. He
Yes.
palmed Huang
Palm
Rong and he killed a baby.
Yeah.
So in Return of Condor Heroes, he becomes a monk under Reverend Yi Dang, and he's seeking redemption, and
Ah.
and so that situation reminds me a lot of of the situation that's emerging between Lita and Jakar. At least that's what Jakar seems to be aiming for. She might get the upper hand, but but I can sort of it's a different religion, it's a different situation, but it's a similar thing where I think he's sort of seeing I can shepherd her through this dark terrain, and
Yeah.
and at the end of it maybe she won't want revenge. Do you know what I mean? I think that's where he's trying to go with this. And
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I mean, you've got that angle, and it's just the fact they like each other too. They have a nice chemistry. When it's characters together, you're like, oh, it works for me. But
Well,
yeah, I like that take you
I
have.
completely forgot we had the whole flirtation scene with them where a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
yeah.
like it's like I buy them as a couple. It's like, yeah, and I mean, it's interesting too with this being where we're moving into the very end of the show. It allows you to do certain things that would be difficult to do otherwise. Like Lita is just a god at this point. It's
Yeah.
like she could do pretty much anything she wants. It's like I feel like even in that cell, like the point where she like blows up the camera, I kind of feel like that's her way of saying, I could have walked out of here at any point. I just don't have anywhere. I just don't want to fight at the moment. It's like she, I feel like if she wanted to get out of that cell, she could have. But it's the kind of thing where if you'd made her this powerful like a season ago, then you would have been like, what are we going to do with this character? I mean, it's kind of talking about Sinclair being the guy who could solve any problem in season one. It's like, this character, the character could either become a villain and go off the rails and become a, because they're powerful, they've gone crazy, which they've gone a little bit like that, but they haven't gone all the way over with it. But with this way, you can actually have her become that powerful in a realistic way, and you don't have to deal with it all the way down the line because she's leaving the show. The show's leaving. It's over.
Yeah, you'll end up with a Angel Summoner BMX Bandit type.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's,
so it's something they can do just because of where we are in the series.
With her too, I feel like, well, it's interesting because number one, I know in a way Sheridan's hands are bound because he's dealing with what's her name, President Luchenko, and he's trying to get those ships made, so he needs Earth to kind of, and there's a war going on, so the last thing he needs is conflict with Earth, probably. But I feel like
Earth and the Centauri would be, that would not be something they could necessarily win.
At the same time, I don't know that arresting Lita Alexander is the best thing to do in that situation. I feel like she's clearly very powerful, and not only that, but she's somebody like he owes her, like they owe her something, and so I feel like arresting her there, that was kind of a, I don't know, it was kind of a jerk move, I thought, on their part. Like, I understood why they were doing it.
It was. It goes back to, this is a problem because they didn't fix it earlier, in the sense that no one has reached out to Lita enough. They haven't cultivated her as an ally in the way that they have with other people. It's like, if Sheridan was staying on the ball, he would have been in a position where he just could have gone and talked to Lita face to face. But he doesn't have that kind of a relationship with Lita, so it put them in this situation. And honestly, I felt like another point where Sheridan made that mistake, the whole scene with him calling out Garibaldi for being drunk, it felt like, okay, you already suspected this, Sheridan. Did you have to do it during the meeting? I mean, that just felt very, undiplomatic there.
I think he wanted Garibaldi to feel the pain of it, though. Do you know what I mean? I think he wanted him to, like, because here's the thing, Garibaldi's like a denier, and I think if Garibaldi came in and he was like, I smell alcohol in your breath, have you been drinking? But no, I'm not drinking, and then that's a ridiculous accusation, no, I'm not going to take any test, I won't stand for it. He's just that sort of guy. But when he falls on his face in front of everybody like that, he has no choice but to admit it. So I think he was just kind of checkmating him in that situation.
I can buy that. I mean, and also, it's not like Sheridan needs to be perfect either. I mean, I can see, just being angry about it and doing it. It's not like people need to make the perfect chess move every time anyway.
Well, it was funny, too, because obviously most of his compassion was being driven by his conversation with Delenn. And he was I think he was legitimately angry. I think rightfully angry at Garibaldi.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the genuine emotion. And it was just tempered by the fact that he had spoken with Delenn 5 minutes ago, and she had, told him to be more compassionate. And so, it's sort of like if you were a kid and the dynamic's different in every family, but if your mother convinced your father to kind of go a little bit easier on you than he normally would, and then the punishment is less severe, even though that underneath it all there's the punishment was supposed to be much worse. I think that's kind of this type of situation it was. And so yeah, I don't know. I enjoy. I also, it was odd in a way too, because he said he was telling Garibaldi that he's his friend and he doesn't want to make the same mistake he made before. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. At the same time, I don't know how good friends are they? Like, at this point in their relationship, there's been a lot of tension. So I think when Garibaldi deciding to move to Mars makes a lot of sense in the wake of this. Just walking away is the thing to do, and he can go fight his secret war against the Psi Corps. And it fulfills Sheridan's threat to Bester way back when they were in that room together, and he said that Garibaldi is going to get back at you. I don't know how, I don't know when, but
that's true.
So there's that. But was there anything else this episode that we didn't cover?
Well, obviously there's the whole pregnancy thing, which we touched on when we were talking about the last
Hmm.
episode. But I don't know that there was a whole lot of plot with regard to that as much as the revelation.
Well,
Um,
that involved Franklin, and Franklin had a couple of important moments this episode. I thought that was. I mean, Delenn being pregnant is obviously a big plot point, and
oh, it was the whole, yeah, I mean, the whole Jakar thing too with the Pilgrims. We haven't talked much. I mean, we indirectly talked about it in regards to him teaming up with Lita, but there's the whole plot line with that. Yeah.
yeah, because he has to leave the ship basically because he needs to. They want him to go to Narn, and if he goes to Narn, he's going to have the problem of being a prophet. If he stays on the ship, things will get disrupted because so many people are coming to see him. So his solution is to go wander, which I think is the right solution for that character. That
Yeah.
Jakar roaming
It's a
through the
great
galaxy.
solution.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And we got a taste of it that right before he got captured and brought to Centauri Prime, where just this vision of him roaming, sort of the all these planetary systems and going on adventures is kind of what I imagine happening to Jakar. Uh,
Yeah.
and but with the Franklin stuff, and the pregnancy, I mean that's obviously important. We know that them having a son or something is relevant in the final episode, so it's kind of like a plot point that kind of has to happen. But again, I'm still really wondering about the parentage. I don't think I'm not convinced that this is a because they only added to my suspicions when there was the when Franklin and he was talking to Franklin and he said you said like this we wouldn't even be able to have a baby. It was like a 400 to 1 chance, and so that made me think, oh, maybe it's half, maybe it's like three quarters Mimbari. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so so I think there's a lot of reason to be suspicious of the parentage here. Um, but
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll have to look for more clues in the remaining three episodes.
but also Franklin had a good moment where he kind of came to Lita Alexander's defense, where I think Sheridan was sort of just was Sheridan or Lockby, I don't remember who, maybe even Garibaldi, but somebody was sort of outraged over all the problems that she's causing for them, and he's like, well, she only went through this and then this
Yeah.
and then this and then this, and he like listed off every bad thing that happened to her, and it was sort of
Yeah.
like like at any one of those points it would have driven pretty much anyone else over the edge, and so uh,
Yeah, like you mentioned before, Franklin was kind of a prickly character early on, but he's just in this season he's just an entirely likable character. It's just
well,
without it's
and
in a
again,
good
I
way.
think I think what's funny about it is how the things that make him likable, they're the things that we didn't like about him before because they've come around. Like
Yeah.
they've been they were rough. Like all of these character features that were so the self righteousness and the indignation, all the stuff that was kind of rough around the edges and made him so prickly. He learned how to use those better, I think, over
Hmm.
time, and he kind of came more into his own and just got more comfortable in his own skin, and and now he's a very, I don't know, he's one of the best characters in the show, and I
Yeah.
mean it's kind of like what happened with the Regent, but on a much larger scale,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah. He's still being the one guy who's kind of morally taking the moral high ground over everyone else in that lead a conversation. But he's doing it in a way that you're just like it's in a nice way as opposed to the I'm better than everybody. He's just pointing it out.
well, and it's also he also seems to be picking his battles better with that. He's not doing it.
Exactly.
He's not doing it
Exactly.
over the menu selection in the mess hall. He's doing it over really important things where so
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And once again, and he is a character that's friends with Lita. He's the person in the command staff that he and Lita can go off on an adventure together and
yeah,
and work together.
I thought it was either going to be him and Lita, or actually I didn't even think it was going to be Jakar and Lita. That totally, even after the
That's
flirting, that surprised me. But
uh
for a while I thought they were going to end up together somehow. If they were going to if they were going to start pairing people off in any way, that seemed like a natural. They seem like a natural couple because they have chemistry, and
hmm
they have a history that where they're both kind of on the same page. I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, that would have I would have accepted that as a alternative ending too.
But I like the interspecies relationships in Babylon 5. So I think that you know, I don't think we've ever seen. Have we seen a Narn aside from like, you know, a one night stand or you know, have we ever actually seen a Narn as a, you know, involved with like a human or another species? Is that?
No, yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's-
But yeah, no,
I had my phone go off earlier, so I can't complain about that.
and I guess that's the signal that we should probably be wrapping things up because I'm going to take my pills in a moment.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll I guess we'll wrap it up here unless there's something you want to add, and we'll be back on Wednesday. We're either going to do the two remaining episodes and then the finale as a separate one, or we'll do them all together as one thing, right? That's so we haven't decided yet, but we'll talk about that after the podcast. And on Friday, we're going to be doing the Shadow Whip. I think people should definitely go on Amazon, watch it. It's probably going to be maybe just me and Adam, or me, Adam, and Kenny on Friday. And then the following week will be the full crowd again. But, you know, definitely watch that and come listen on the podcast. And yeah, so we'll be back on and we'll talk to you later.